Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. I very welcome my friends and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then smash the subscribe button, please, and the like button, please. And please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. You will choke on whatever you're drinking every time I post. And welcome to Monday's edition of the DC Multiverse Daily. David F. Sandberg asks what other DC characters you want in Shazam, Fury of the Gods. And here is your options: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and Harley Quinn. Now, in my opinion, everyone should be atting David with Superman. Now, I'm not sure if this is actually his poll, but he does go on to say this. It's a poll he shared. Now, this is what he says above the poll. Poll for which DC character you most want to see in Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Right. And he shares the link. Now he replies, someone replies to him saying, "You have a very strange sense of humour. Fans have been waiting for Superman, Henry Cavill, Batman, Ben Affleck for several years, and you make such posts as a joke. You should be ashamed." Right. He does quote tweet this. "People ask me all the time to put their favourite character in Shazam as if they're all at my disposal, and I'm like, nah, let's not. If it was up to me, you'd have Shazamily team up with Justice League and the Avengers to fight Mecha Godzilla and the Galactic Empire." Now, listen, it's interesting, isn't it? It's an interesting pushback. So, is he actually asking what we want, or is he being funny? Right. So it's pretty clear David is trying to tell us, look, stop asking me for all these characters because it isn't up to me. I can only do what I'm allowed to do. Now, obviously, David's got to focus on Billy Batson, the Shazam family, and that is his focus to continue the strings and threads that he set up so beautifully in the first Shazam film. But at the end of the day, I think kind of the poll isn't a joke. I think the poll is a real kind of thing. Now, maybe, I haven't clicked the link, so it might be something stupid when you click the link. Probably is. But at the end of the day, I do believe there's a big chance that Henry Cavill's Superman will be in Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Why? Because they set that whole relationship up in the cameo we saw of Cavill's Superman at the end of the first film. No, Cavill wasn't the one in the suit, but it was supposed to be Cavill's Superman. So, I do think that it doesn't hurt to keep on screaming about Cavill's Superman being in Shazam, Fury of the Gods. But, you shouldn't take offence at David's humour. David's a great guy. I think he's a great director. These are some of the good things that Walter Hamada has done. I mean, it's all very well for Ray Fisher to keep on exposing private conversations he's had with him. But we're not here to support Walter Hamada because he's a stand-up moralistic guy. We're here to support his decisions if they're good decisions. And the directors he's brought in thus far have been really, really good, and the writers. So I'm happy with Walter Hamada bringing in people who he's worked with before from New Line Cinema, like David F. Sandberg, and David did a great job with Shazam, whether you like it or not. But I do believe Cavill's Superman will be in Shazam 2. He's definitely going to be in the Flashpoint movie, which we'll be talking about very, very shortly. So even though he was joking here, I still think the point is, it's not up to me, basically, David is saying. It's not up to me what happens here. So you need to be asking, Warner Media, the real bosses, Jim Lee, Walter Hamada. They're the ones who can allow these characters to cross over. Now, personally, I'm not demanding any crossovers, right? I'm happy for each film to represent the characters it's supposed to represent from that film, from those characters like Shazam and the family and whatever villain they're going to deal with. But there is no doubt about it. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is so popular and successful and has made so much money because of the elements of crossovers in each film, right? We even had the first one at the end of Iron Man, which was Nick Fury, right? It's been something, a staple of the MCU. It's not that the MCU is this really genius franchise, or the films are the best films ever made, is the fact that superhero and comic book fans love crossovers and cameos. And this is why Flashpoint is exciting people, and that's really exciting as well, what they're doing with the multiverse strategy. And we can already see with the MCU, they're copying what Walter Hamada and Jim Lee are trying to do with that strategy, because that's what Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is trying to do. It's trying to bring in the Marvel multiverse. So two films, very, very similar in what they're attempting to do. And I'm excited for both. More excited for Flashpoint because I'm a DC fan at the end of the day. But what I really wanted to talk about today was from Man of Steel to Flashpoint. How did we get here? How is it shaping up? How do we feel about the DC extended cinematic universe at this point? So when we watched Man of Steel in theatres, I don't think any of us thought we would get to a point by film, 8, 9, 10 or whatever number it's going to be, where we're getting a Flashpoint movie which rewrites the entire universe. I never thought we would get here, but there's a specific reason why we got here. It's because the entire of the DC fandom was not happy with Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman or Suicide Squad. The DC fandom was extremely happy with Wonder Woman. Everybody, the Snyder fandom and the DC hardcore fans hated Justice League. Although I think the hardcore fandom kind of liked what they were trying to do with it, but not that it was rushed and horrible and cheaply made and what they did to Cavill's face. So I think the people who do like Justice League like what it attempted to do, not what it actually did, if you know what I mean. But, this is why we're at Flashpoint now, where we have got this multiverse strategy and we've got this situation where Barry Allen is going to open the doorway to the multi-earth, to all these different Earths in DC kind of in the DC universe, right? Because by doing that, you give everybody what they want to see. You can have the Dark Snyder films, you can have the lighter films, you can have more weird films like Joker movie. It just opens up the platform. But what's even more exciting about this, that what the multiverse strategy actually says, that every live action TV show, DC live action TV show and movie ever made is now part of the canon. That's amazing, right? Green Lantern, Reeves Superman. But what's even more amazing to me, someone like Brandon Routh, who played Christopher Reeve's Superman in Superman Returns, is now part of the DC extended cinematic universe canon. And he should be there because he was a tremendous Superman. It's interesting, really, to think that Bryan Singer had this idea of recreating Reeves' Superman. And even though people didn't love the film at the time, now that has positive consequences. And you see, this is what the multiverse strategy will do. But I think what's amazing is how we got here. We got here because of Man of Steel and BVS, and because of the terrible version of the Suicide Squad that they put out there. Now, that's not David Ayer's fault. That's not David Ayer's movie. He shot elements of that film, but there was reshot sequences. A trailer company edited the film. Totally not David's film. And that comes from the distrust they had from Zack Snyder's vision through Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman. And there lied the problem. So within 3 films in, right, we got this situation where a lot of people are not liking what's going on, and the films are not making the money that the studio wants, and the reaction isn't good. In fact, the reaction is poisonous. Despite people like me and a lot of people out there loving Man of Steel and BVS and looking forward to Zack Snyder's Justice League as we was back then until it was taken away from him. But next year, maybe this year, who knows, it's been a strange year, anything can happen, we are actually going to see Zack Snyder's Justice League. Zack has explained it as an Elseworld situation, that he's no longer developing the entire DCEU, and his canon and his little ballpark is Man of Steel, BVS, and his Justice League movie. And he's also admitted that he's at this moment in time not expecting to be asked to continue what he was doing, but he said, you never know, and he's hoping that that could happen. And the only way that can happen is if we all support Zack Snyder's Justice League, which we're all going to do, you know. So that's part of it. So one of the reasons we're getting Flashpoint and the rebirth situation, because that's what this Flashpoint movie is. It's rebirth. They did it in the comics, right? They rebirthed the entire universe, right? And I think it worked for a hell of a lot of people, and it was a great idea, and I think it can work for the DCEU. And this is what they're doing. They're doing that because they're in a situation where Snyder's vision was the central point of this franchise, and it simply wasn't working for everyone. So when Walter Hamada came in, he had to look at this whole thing. What can I do here? It's a situation where we've got these poisonous reactions. Fans are not happy. Some are, some are not. It's clear we can't just allow Snyder to keep on developing this thing, because that isn't a populist thing, even though many, many people love what he did. So because many, many people love what he did, we'll give him his little sandpit over at HBO Max, and then we'll have different visions, and it's all part of this multiverse. And it's a brilliant idea from Walter Hamada, and it just shows you he is the right man, along with Jim Lee, to be running the live-action universe, because now everything that's ever been made in DC live-action, whether it's TV or films, is actually canon. And that's amazing to me. And as you know, as we discuss every day here on the DC Multiverse Daily here on Big Mouth, I do kind of look at it and think, wow, what great things we've got to look forward to. And what I love now is that Walter Hamada and Jim Lee have publicly stated that they are going for this multiverse strategy. And the director and his sister of Flashpoint have said, you know, they're rewriting this universe without forgetting things. Again, very, very exciting. So that's great for Snyder fans like me, but ultimately, I'm a DC fan, so I just think this multiverse strategy is great. There's some people who are calling it lazy. I don't think it's lazy. It's an inventive way of giving everyone what they want. And people saying, well, you can't please everyone. You can't. And I said this the other day, and I'll say it again specifically. You can't please everyone, but the moment you stop trying to please everyone, you should stop trying. And you never want to stop trying. This is an exciting idea, by the way, that Feige is implementing, starting with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So if you're someone who likes Feige and likes what he does and thinks he's a genius, he's literally copying what Hamada and Lee have decided to do. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. So I think we're in a very, very exciting situation, but a very different situation than we were in when we all saw Man of Steel. Man of Steel was the beginning of this franchise. Very exciting to have Christopher Nolan and David Goyer, you know, lead this thing and bring Zack Snyder in to show us the vision. But in fact, Man of Steel is really, in a way, Christopher Nolan's vision as well. And he's the one, without Christopher Nolan, who showed faith in Zack Snyder, and Deb Snyder brought them in, you know, said to them, do you want to do a Superman movie? And they were, you know, I remember Deb saying, you know, we just are not inspired to do him if there's not an inventive way where we put him in the real world. And, you know, I think thanks to David Goyer, while he was writing The Dark Knight Rises, he came up with this wonderful idea. And I think Man of Steel is a great movie. And a few people have said to me, damn, bloody hell, if our franchises started off with films like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, we'd be well happy. And that's how I feel. I think Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman are great movies. They really are. But they're niche movies, right? Which means everybody isn't going to like them. But I'm going to go deeper and further. I remember when Snyder was announced for Man of Steel, people had already made their minds up that they weren't going to like the film because they didn't like Snyder's Watchmen, right? Because Snyder was loved by everyone when he made 300. And I mean everyone. Everyone loved that guy when he made 300, right? And his zombie movie, and I forgot what it's called now. Everyone loved Snyder. He was up and coming. People liked him. They thought he was a great adapter of comics, right? And then, because 300 is based on a Frank Miller graphic novel, I think, right? So everyone loved him. But he touched their beloved Watchmen, right? And that's where it kind of, that's where the opinions of him became divisive. And as soon as he was announced for Man of Steel, everybody decided they weren't going to like it because they didn't like what he did with Watchmen. Ultimately, Zack wasn't totally in charge of Man of Steel. The vision and the story and the narrative was David Goyer's and Christopher Nolan's narrative, with Zack Snyder, doing the directing. And obviously, the way the film looks is totally Zack Snyder, and that's what Nolan wanted. That's why he brought it in. Because he wouldn't have brought Zack in. Did I just call Zack in? I mean, that's why he brought him in. Apologies. But the reason Nolan brought in Snyder is because if he wasn't going to bring Snyder in, Nolan could have directed the picture himself and BVS. But Nolan conceded that he could never, do justice to Superman and his universe visually. And that's why he brought in Zack Snyder. And it was a great idea. I mean, the way Snyder directs these DC movies, he does justice. It's like I'm opening up the comic book and I'm seeing that beautiful artwork. That's what Snyder does. He translates the artwork from the comic panels and puts them into live action beautifully, as he did with Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns with BVS. And that's the thing, right? But people seem to decide that he doesn't understand these characters. Nobody understands these characters and their narratives and their emotional strengths, right? And the religious undertones more than Zack Snyder. But unfortunately in life, when people make their minds up, that's it. They hate him, they hate him, they hate him. We're never going to change their minds. And that's fine. And this is why we're approaching in 2 years' time a Flashpoint movie that, reignites this universe and gives it a rebirth. Now, I think it's a great thing. I'm happy that we've been told it's a rebirth, but nothing gets forgotten. That's important, that nothing gets forgotten, and Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman are canon. Now, we are approaching a strategy here where everything's going to be canon. And that's what I like. Excuse me. That's what I like. Because it's a situation where we're going to see this rebirth, but everything exists in different universes and different worlds. And I think that's incredibly special. And I think that's incredibly exciting. I was thinking about this today, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to say something, but I want to explain to people how being a large, successful YouTuber works. Right? My throat is really terrible right now, so I'm probably going to cough again. So don't mind me. But to be a large, successful YouTuber, you have sponsors. And you become the slave of big organizations, like Warner Brothers, like these other studios. And you really don't get... So when you first get introduced to a YouTuber, as we all do, going through the algorithm, right? And we see different videos, and they're so open and they're so honest about their opinions, right? Whether it's football, whether it's films, whether it's anything, right? And then we subscribe on that premise, and everybody subscribes to them. And then what happens is, the bigger they get, the more ambitious they get. And to be successful and famous in this world, you have to be focused. Most of these people give themselves stage names before they even start. So, the whole idea is to become successful. So once they become successful, they become a little bit more dishonest. They become not honest with their opinions because they become slaves to their sponsors and they become slaves to these larger organizations. And how do you become a large YouTuber? Well, it's not as easy as it looks. Obviously, I'm not talking from experience because I'm not a large YouTuber. But the point is, you have to advertise your platform. You have to pay to advertise your platform, and that's the thing about it. And it takes years and years and years, and you still may not be successful. It isn't as easy as it looks, and I just wanted to say that because the idea of being able to talk like this freely with my own opinions every day and bring it to about 30 to 50 people, which isn't a lot, but it's better than nothing, and I'm happy with that, right? And who knows what the future holds for me in this channel. Now, I get a few offers by big kind of YouTubers and things like that to go on their, to go on their channels and talk. And that's great, but then you've got to think about it. If I go on there and people like me and people start following this channel, then people want to sponsor me, then people want to own me. Because that's what it is. You're going to get owned, and you've got to be careful what you say. Once you get involved with larger channels, they want to police how you act when you're not on those channels. So I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I really am. And even though from the outside looking in, it looks like a really unprofessional channel, an unsuccessful channel, I still get to come here every day and say what I want to say. And I think for the people who loyally come in every day, even if it's 30 to 50 people, I think that's why people are coming back. So comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with more frank and honest opinions on the DC, multiverse, and so much more. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe. See you again tomorrow.